Outside the barracks by the corner light, I'll always stand and wait for you at night. We'll create a world for two. I'll wait for you the whole night through. For you, my Lily Marling, my own Lily Marling. Bugler tonight, don't play the call to arms. I want another evening of her charms. Then we will say goodbye and pass. I'll always keep you in my heart, my lily of the lamppost, my own Lily Marling. My lily of the lamplight, my own Lily Marling. Well, everybody, that's sort of a different song for me to be singing. Actually, the lyrics were written for a woman to sing. Originally, I adjusted them slightly, but the reason I was singing that was when I tried to think of a German song, that was the first one that popped into my head, sung originally by Marlene Dietrich many, many years ago. And the reason I wanted a German song is because today we are going to make Rouladen, which is a German dish. So, let's get to it. I'm going to move the camera up so you won't be looking at me so much as looking at what we're doing, which will be much more helpful. All right, so hang on a second and hopefully I won't make you motion sick. And there we go. What's that? Front row seat. There we go. Now, traditionally for rouladen, you would take your meat and you would beat it with a tenderizing hammer until it's about a 1/4 inch thick. I cheated. I went to the butcher and bought my meat already cut to that thickness. And as you can see, it's a nice long piece. So we'll just set this one here. I'm doing one for myself and one for Mrs. Wyckoff. And you can hear Browan thinks he should get one too. Right, Betty? Yeah? Do you think you should get a rouladen too? Yeah? Well, next thing I've got to do now, I've touched raw beef with my hands, is wash my hands. My stickly thing is, those of you who watch me all the time know, is wash your hands. And next we're going to need some Dijon Mustard, which sounds funny for a German dish that we're using a mustard with a French name, but that's what the recipe calls for. So who am I to argue? Huh? If I can get this lid off of here, we'll be all set. Come on, there we go. Now, if you want to be exacting, the recipe calls for a 1/2 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, whoops, which is way more than I have there, to be spread thinly. Let's move some over onto this other one. So we're going to cover the whole surface of this meat. The toothpicks are for later. I do need them, but they're getting in the way at the moment. So you just take your basting brush and just spread your Dijon mustard over the surface of the meat. Everybody with me so far? Yes, Brogan, I know you would love to have this, wouldn't you? Huh? Yeah. Sorry, but I can't pitch you at the moment because then I have to go wash my hands again. But Brogan's had his supper already, but he thinks he should have our supper too. And there we go. So we've got our mustard spread over the surface. Then we're going to take diced onions. Now, if you don't like onions, this dish probably isn't for you, because if we leave the onions out, we no longer have rouladen. I'm just going to use my marinating brush once again to spread this around. If you're making this for yourself to eat, then you can just jump right in there any way you want, with or without washed fingers, and who's going to know? But in my kitchen, we wash our hands. A few more of those there. So you just get your onions spread around in there like that. If you like onions, well, then you can never have enough, right? Now, if you are German and make this all the time, that's great, and no laughing at me, okay? Because you're watching a Welsh Scotchman making a German dish, so you have to bear with me. I won't laugh at you when you make Welsh cakes. How's that? Sound like a fair deal? Alrighty. So we've got our onions and that spread on there. Next, we are going to sprinkle them with a little salt. Don't want too much, because otherwise all you'll taste is salt. And then we want a little black pepper. Now, if you have a pepper mill, then you could do that. I do, but I just didn't think to get it out. So I'm just going to use my pepper shaker. Alright, and then we're going to take a little paprika. Just a light dusting, you don't want too much paprika in there. Enough that you can see that it's there, but not so much that all you taste is paprika. Alright, now traditionally you would take slices of bacon and put on here, but as I did not have any slices of bacon, I'm cheating and I'm using some real bacon bits. So you can say, oh, that's not real rouladen. You're supposed to put a slice of bacon in there. But I think the end effect will be fairly good. So there we go. So there we have it. Our next step is to roll it up like a jelly roll. And now here's where the toothpicks come in, you see? We're going to pin it closed with the toothpicks. So there's one. I'll set that off to the side. And we just catch the escapees off the end there and tuck them right back in. Now you could peg these with your toothpick like this way, but the problem with that is when you go to brown these in the pan, the toothpick will get in the way. So it's actually better to close them like this. So there we have the first step in our rouladen. Now the next step we will come to in just a moment, so don't go away, we'll be right back. So here we are now at the stove. Our next step is we want to heat about 3 teaspoons of canola oil or vegetable oil in a skillet over medium heat. And once we get that up to heat, we'll add our rouladen and we'll brown it. You can kind of tell when your oil is ready if you drop things in and they sizzle. So there we go, they're starting to cook. Now you don't want to get your oil so hot that it starts spitting everywhere. So bring it up to temperature. I like to cook on gas, you may have electric. That's not going to make any difference as far as I know in the flavor or in the other aspects of this. So for me, medium high on my stove, if I turn all the way up to high, is 7. So medium heat would be about 3.5. So here we go. Our oil's starting to, as you can see, our oil's starting to bubble. And I'm going to put in our rouladen. Any stray bits that fall in, you can just toss them in. It's not going to hurt anything. Now what we want to do at this point, now rouladen sticking to the pan. If you just really want to brown them all the way around, you can. And you're going to get some leakage of your ingredients coming out. That's not unusual, but that's okay. It's not going to go to waste, other than your waste, or whoever else you're cooking for. So once we have these browned all the way around, like that, we're going to turn down our heat. And we're going to add 12 ounces of beef broth. Now you can make your own or buy store-bought. I'm using Campbell's, so you want to, if you prefer millimeters, it's 284 millimeters. If you prefer ounces, it's a 12-ounce can. Then we're going to add 1 1/4 cups of water to that. There we go. And we're going to try and bring that up to a boil. And I'm going to turn these one more time. I'm going to turn this down to a simmer. Put the lid on and set the timer for 30 minutes. And if you want to watch this happen for 30 minutes, I'll let you go to your own kitchen and you can put a pot on the stove and simmer it for 30 minutes. But otherwise, I'm going to pause it here and we'll come back in 30 minutes when we're ready to do the rest of the recipe. This isn't ready yet, but I just thought, in case you were wondering what I was doing for a side, what I'm doing is new potatoes in spearmint. So you just cut up your new potatoes, or if they're small enough, you can leave them whole, and you put them in your pot to boil with some spearmint leaves, whether fresh or dried. Fresh is preferable, but this time in Saskatchewan, they're a little hard to come by fresh spearmint. So I'm using dried spearmint, but that's what we're having on our side, along with some fresh peas. So we'll be back shortly to see how our rouladen is doing. Let's just have a peek while we're letting it cook. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Maybe I'll give it a turn while we're in here. There we go. So we've got about 19 minutes left to go on the 30, so we're about 1/3 of the way there. And we're back. Our 30 minutes is up. Take the lid off of there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to remove our meat from the pan and set it aside. And to what we have here, turn that up just a little bit, we are going to add first we're going to strain this, so what we need is another saucepan. So we're going to strain our liquid from our skillet. Okay, now I'm just going to use the saucepan here. Normally you would just continue using the skillet, but I'm going to move this to a saucepan to do the rest of what we need to do. And we're going to whisk in our 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Get our trusty whisk, and we will just start whisking that in. The nice thing with cornstarch is it's not as prone to making lumps as flour is. I'm not saying it won't make lumps, it still can make lumps, it's just not as likely to do so. Now if you're concerned about lumps, and there's a possibility you get some lumps, and good answer, I'll just do it for you just to show you. Like I've used this before. There. But a good way to avoid lumps is to use an electric whisk. Because the blades of the electric whisk tend to break up any lumps that you do have. So once you've done that, then we're going to add our 1/4 cup of sour cream. I can get it to go in there. My sister-in-law, who is married to my wife's brother, so does that make her my sister-in-law-in-law? I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, is her mother is German and her father is Dutch. Now they say to add a cup of hot water, but I've got so much liquid here I'm not going to do that. So normally you would add a cup of hot water at this point, but I'm afraid if I did that I would have super runny into it. So I've got that all nicely blended together. Now we're just going to turn the heat up under that a little bit because we want it to thicken. So it's almost like making a gravy, really. It's a sauce, but it's very similar to a gravy. Yep. Turn it back down a little bit because we don't want it to boil over. thickening up nicely for us. And now what we're going to do is we are going to return our meat to the frying pan and pour our sauce over the top. Or if you did all of this in the skillet, then you just return the meat to the skillet. If you wanted to at this point, you could take some sour cream and put on your rouladen as you serve it, just to kind of highlight it and decorate it up a bit. But we'll leave that to each individual to do and prepare do the final preparations to the rouladen to have it the way they like. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed today's recipe, and there we go. I'm just going to bring this up so you can have a look at me again for a second. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's recipe and give it a try. It's Rouladen. It's a nice German dish. You can go online and find recipes for it. This is the one I know, and I hope you'll give it a try and enjoy it. And if you'll excuse us now, Mrs. Weigath and myself are going to eat supper, because this is best served right off the stove. All right, until Friday when we do our shout-outs, our Groaner of the Week, and our story, stay safe, take care, and God bless.